Okay, well, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you joining us from around the world today. My name is Barbara Stoddard. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions on the international team here at Penn. Now, of course, it's morning time for us here in Philadelphia and for those of you in the Western Hemisphere, but I know that for many of you, it's the afternoon, or for some of you, actually pretty late at night. So thank you so much for finding time during your day and busy schedule to join us here to learn a little bit more about financial aid at Penn. Now, one benefit, of course, of a virtual program is that it allows people from all over the world to come together simultaneously. And we really do have a diverse and global audience here today. As we saw in the polls, we had students register from dozens and dozens of countries around the world. So we really appreciate you all taking the time to join us for this program. Now, just a few notes before we get started. If you would like to use closed captioning at any point during the program, you can click the CC button that you see in your Zoom menu. You're also welcome and encouraged to submit questions in the Q&A box throughout the program. There are Penn staff behind the scenes here, both from the admissions office and from the financial aid office, who are ready to type answers to your questions throughout the program. And we also have some experts who will answer some of your questions live on screen. Now, because we have a large audience today, we probably won't be able to answer every single question, but we're going to try to answer as many as we can. And because this program is focused on financial aid, we're going to prioritize questions about that topic. If you still have questions at the end of the event, I'm going to share some contact information so that you can follow up with both the admissions office and the financial aid office. Now, we are going to record this event and we will post the video on the Penn Admissions YouTube channel later on. So we politely ask that you don't record or republish any part of the program because we're going to record it for you. Now, if you'd like to learn more about Penn after today's program, the admissions office offers many for you to learn more about our university and to engage with us. We have information sessions, guided virtual tours, workshops, all sorts of things that you can do online from the comfort of your home or your classroom. And you can register for those by going to the Visit Penn section of our website. And I'll share a link for that at the end of the program. For the next hour, we're going to focus specifically on financial aid for international students. If you have questions about the application process for admission to Penn, I would encourage you to register for one of our virtual information sessions. That will cover all the components of the application, like transcripts and recommendations and essays, and we'll go into more detail about those different pieces. Now, before we proceed to the main event, I'd like to take a moment to give a land acknowledgement. At Penn Admissions, we open all of our presentations this way to formally honor the land on which our university is located. Philadelphia occupies the traditional homelands of the Lenni Lenape. Our university acknowledges this and expresses gratitude to the indigenous people of our region, both past and present, for the opportunity to live and learn on Lenapehoking, which is the land of the Lenape. Now, this is just a brief agenda to give you an idea of how we're going to spend the next hour together. I'm wrapping up our welcome now, and I'm really excited that we're joined by two wonderful colleagues and experts from our Student Financial Aid Office. We have Erick Herrera here, who is the Director of Undergraduate Financial Aid and Student Employment, as well as John Haggerty, the Senior Associate Director of Undergraduate Aid. They are going to give an informative presentation about all of the details you need to know in order to apply for financial aid at Penn. Then they will take some of your questions live at the end of their presentation. But as I mentioned, we also have Penn staff behind the scenes who can type answers to your questions throughout the program. So keep those questions coming throughout the hour. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Erick and John on screen to begin their presentation.
Hello, everyone. I'm introducing myself again, Erick Herrera, Director of Undergraduate Financial Aid and Student Employment. I've been with the institution now for about 6 years, a great place. Want to thank you again for joining us today from all over the world. It's great to see over 250 folks wanting to learn more about the Penn Financial Aid Program for our international students. John?
Thanks, Eric. Hi, everyone. My name is John Haggerty. I'm the Senior Associate Director for Undergraduate Aid. I've been at Penn for about 6 years now, and I've also really enjoyed my time here and getting to know how we apply financial aid for all of our students, as international as well as domestic. So hopefully you find this presentation informational.
So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the topics we will cover on today's presentation. In many ways, financial aid at Penn works the same for undergraduate international students as it does for undergraduate students who are U.S. citizens or permanent residents. In this presentation, we will highlight the differences between our international and our domestic financial aid programs, but you may be surprised by just how similar they are. John, if we can go to the next slide. Perfect, thank you. So before we get into the details of how to apply for aid and how we build financial aid packages, we want to explain a bit about the philosophy behind our program. Undergraduate financial aid is one of the highest priorities for the University of Pennsylvania. Penn is committed to having an economically diverse student body and ensuring that students from all financial backgrounds can access a Penn education. To achieve that, back in 2008, Penn launched a grant-based financial aid program, committing to meet 100% of every student's financial need with grant and work-study funding. And that's including students who are admitted with international students who are admitted with financial need. This means that it is possible to graduate from Penn without debt. And although some families may still utilize loans for specific purposes, it's not a requirement. Penn is the largest university with this type of aid program. Like all Ivy League institutions, Penn awards aid based on need and does not offer any merit or athletic scholarships. To show you what we mean, we include some average statistics about financial aid recipients at Penn. We're especially proud of the aid that we can offer to our lower income families. For families with less than $75,000 in income or in typical assets, financial aid packages cover all bill expenses. And for middle income families making up to $140,000 a year, financial aid packages are greater than tuition. So the most important takeaway that I hope you get from that introductory slide is that a Penn education is within reach, and it may well be more affordable than schools with a lower sticker price. John is going to walk you now through the beginning stages of the financial aid process, and so you have a better understanding of where to begin and how to follow the process.
Thank you, Eric. Before we go through the basics of applying for aid and how we build a financial aid package, there's a few points we want to emphasize for international students. The first thing to note is that Penn is need aware for international students who are not from Canada or Mexico. This means that your financial need is taken into consideration when you are applying for admission. Every year we work to increase our financial aid budget for international students, but our current reality means that we are limited in the number of international students we can admit with financial need. That being said, Penn is committed to meeting 100% of demonstrated need for those international students who we do admit. So if you are admitted as a financial aid applicant, you will receive a financial aid package just like a student from the United States. Our packages are made entirely of grant funds, which means you don't have to pay it back. So to be considered for financial aid, you must apply for financial aid at the same time you apply for admissions. And I should note that you want to pay attention to when you're applying for aid. If you're going to be applying for early decision, that'll have different deadlines than regular decision. So you want to be very conscious of the fact that when you're applying for admission, there may also be corresponding deadlines for financial aid applications as well. So you're going to be doing kind of two things at once. And the goal, if you are able to meet the deadlines with all the documentation we request, the goal is to make sure that you have a financial aid package at the time you also receive your admissions acceptance letter, and so that you have the information at hand in order to inform yourself about how much it's going to cost. This is especially important for early decision because in early decision, you have to make sort of a quick decision about when to commit to Penn. And in regular decision, you're looking at a whole bunch of different schools, hopefully. So two different arenas of applying, but you also want to make sure you're meeting those deadlines, just so our team has the time and effort to be able to provide you a financial aid package at the time you're admitted. If you apply as a non-aid applicant and you're admitted and then decide you need financial aid, unfortunately, we won't be able to help you at that point. So it's very important to apply for financial aid at the beginning of the process, especially if you think you need it. Conversely, if you don't need financial aid, then don't apply for it. There's no need to. All aided students, regardless of their country of citizenship, are required to reapply for financial aid each academic year. This way, we can be responsive to any changes in your financial situation and make sure that you are continuing to receive that aid that you need. This is important, again, to make the decision about applying for financial aid as you complete the process for admission, because we'll ask you for a renewal application. But again, I do want to highlight, if you don't intend to apply for financial aid in the first year, we aren't able to accept an application for future years. An important thing that many international students do not realize about financial aid in the United States is that your financial aid dollars will be subject to U.S. tax withholdings. At Penn, this will appear as an additional charge on your student account each semester. This is unfortunately a charge that we cannot absorb with additional grant funding, so you'll need to prepare for this additional expense. In essence, if we even were to provide you with additional grant funding, you would be taxed more. So it really is not something we're able to assist with. We have some information on our website and also remind you about this in your financial aid award notice if you are accepted and receive aid. So please pay attention to that and you'll be able to see the information about what you can do. On the next slides, we're going to go over the application process for international students, but you can always review the checklist on our website for full instructions. And I would invite that you do that at Penn, depending on the cycle that you're applying. Okay, so this is how to apply for financial aid, very simply put. In order to be eligible for aid as an international student, you must apply for financial aid at the same time as applying for admissions, right? The applications are separate, but you must complete them both. What's important to highlight here too is that if for any reason you are late in applying, maybe if it's one day, or if you're missing a document and you get your acceptance letter, but you do not receive a financial aid application or award, we will still give you the same exact consideration for that financial aid as you would if it were on time. I think that's important just to highlight, to know that we are able to make that consideration no matter what. But the reason why we have the deadlines is to help you be informed when you receive that acceptance letter. So we want you to review the checklist on our website to determine exactly which documents and applications you need to submit. On the slide, we list the application requirements for international students. When you access our checklists, you will see the version for you. The CSS profile is already available after October 1st of each year, and you can apply as early as you need to for whatever cycle you're going to apply for. We also ask you to submit a translated copy of any earning statement or tax document that your family submits in your country of residence. The actual deadlines differ depending on whether you are applying for early decision or regular decision again. So it will follow that admissions cycle. And we will update our checklist early in the fall with the new deadlines for each year's applicant cycle. So we also want you to know that you're applying for financial aid now or soon, but those deadlines might change as you are a continuing student. So how do we build a financial aid package at Penn? Here we're going to talk a little bit about the cost of attendance. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's the cost of attending Penn for an academic year. Penn's cost of attendance includes the typical expenses you might expect, like tuition, fees, room and board. But we also account for the expenses that we expect you will incur throughout the year, like textbooks, local transportation around the city of Philadelphia, and personal or miscellaneous expenses. For students who live beyond Pennsylvania, New York, or New Jersey, we also include a travel component to account for trips home, but you won't see that in this basic example. We work directly with international students who are admitted to Penn and receive aid to determine their additional allowance for round-trip travel to campus. as travel costs will vary from country to country. Finally, we can include the cost of the Penn student insurance plan for students who need to purchase health insurance. It's natural to be overwhelmed by the cost of attendance number, but please don't panic. The average financial aid recipient received more than $66,222 in grant aid this year, and that's more than the cost of tuition. And students with the highest level of financial need have almost all of these expenses covered by financial aid funding. In our next slide, we'll explain how we build a financial aid package. So how do we determine financial need, which is the foundation of our packages? Penn, our financial aid office, essentially takes all the information you submit in your financial aid applications, and we will assess your family's financial aid situation. This helps us to determine an estimated family contribution, or EFC, which is the amount of the funding we expect your family to contribute to the cost of attendance each year. The expected family contribution is made up of two components, a parental contribution and a student contribution. These are exactly what they sound like. The portion of the EFC we expect to come from your parents, and the portion we expect to come from you, the student. After determining your expected family contribution, financial aid is a simple mathematical equation. It's the cost of attendance minus your own expected family contribution, and that is equal to the demonstrated financial need, and we will meet that need 100% with grants and work-study funds. Ultimately, it's a family decision how they will meet the expected family contribution, either through paying outright, budgeting over the year, using a payment plan, or utilizing private loan programs or financing. One thing to note, about 10% of undergraduate students are considered highly aided students. These students have a family income of $75,000 US dollars or less. And student financial aid has calculated the parental contribution to be $4,500 or less. Highly aided students not only receive packages that cover tuition, fees, room and board, but also receive funding to purchase a laptop computer, full funding for health insurance, access to a summer internship and research funding, and more. Admitted students who are eligible for this additional funding will receive more information on their financial aid award notice. So we will make that determination about your highly aided status, and you will see that right in your financial aid award. But anyone can read more about the highly aided student initiatives on our website. I'm now going to turn it over back to Eric.
Thank you, John. So earlier we mentioned the work study as a major part of the Penn's financial aid package. Students can use the work study award to earn money throughout the year by finding a job listed by the Student Employment Office, and usually on the website. It's a relatively simple application or database to search over the different jobs that are available on campus. We usually start sending notifications to students early in the summer, letting them know that positions are beginning to be posted on the website, so they can start looking at the different jobs available on campus and start applying as early as late July. Many students find their work-study positions to be truly fulfilling experience. Some can find jobs in their area of interest, including opportunities to conduct research with faculty members. Other jobs will expose you to the administrative opportunities of a higher education institution like Penn. Some jobs are simple, some are more complex, but there is a great variety for you to review. Please keep in mind that jobs are not guaranteed, and you are responsible for securing a job. This may not happen immediately, so it's best to factor that into your budget for the semester. Finally, know that having a work-study award in your financial aid package does not mean that you are required to work. You can disregard the award, or you can speak to a financial aid counselor about changing all or a portion of your work-study award into loan funding. But I would say, as a former work-study student, I would highly encourage students to participate in what I call my favorite financial aid program. Not only you have the opportunity to earn funding that on a regular basis that you get like any other job. Every week you get paid, and you can use that funding for your own personal expenses. with self-students. That way you don't have to ask your parents for money all the time because you are earning your money. But another great thing about the work-study program is that you start building relationships, not just only with faculty members, but with staff members, with community service organizations. You start building your resume, and you start gaining a lot of skills that could be transferred later on once you start applying for research opportunities or internships as you get closer to graduation. But you gain a lot of experience, and not just the funding from being part of the work study program. I started my very first job as a work study student in the financial aid office over 20 years ago. I fell in love with the profession, and I decided to pursue a career in higher education and financial aid, especially because of my work study role. And many of us that work in higher education also had a work study experience like my own. So I will definitely recommend folks to apply for a work study job as early as your first semester. You can work as minimum of 5 hours and a maximum 20 hours. So it's a very convenient program, and you get so much out of it. So let's talk about loans, which are also considered a financial aid program. We are very proud of our financial aid program and our policy to meet full demonstrated need with grant and work study funding, but we also still provide counseling and educational loans. Students and their families can choose to use funding to cover all or a portion of their expected family contribution with loan funding. Students can choose to take out a loan to replace their work study, as I mentioned earlier, if they decide not to work during the semester or the academic year. But only about a quarter of our undergraduate population takes out loans, some level of loan funding. It's not a high number of students, and a lot of our students actually when they borrow, they borrow a small amount of loans. We also have a specialized financial aid team that can walk you through the different loan options that exist, especially for international students, because for international students, there are limitations on the mono loans, on the loan or the lenders that exist out there. Most of our international students are looking to search for a private loan. They have to look for their own lender, that are designed for international students. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of lenders out there that offer loans to international students, but there are some, and we work closely with them, so we can walk you. There's on our website, there's a list of all the different lenders that we work with, and we can help you identify a loan that works for you and your family. Ultimately, you make the decision which lender you want to borrow funding from, but we can guide you through what the loan options exist out there. And finally, I want to talk about outside scholarships, because this is a topic that comes that we get a lot of questions from first year students or prospective students. So a lot of we have a policy that exists on our website, but we'll also share it on our screen. And the way the outside scholarships works at Penn, it's very similar to what other similar or peer institutions do. By outside scholarships, what I mean about that is funding that comes from a place other than Penn that is intended to cover your educational expenses. This also includes awards that might come from a civic institution and community service organization, as well as tuition benefits that your parents might have access to. At Penn, we consider outside scholarships as a financial resource, and we take those into any scholarships or any funding that you might get into consideration when we're building your financial aid package, or even after we provide you a financial aid package and you find out that you're receiving some outside funding. We are required to take that into consideration for your financial aid. So what we do is, as we build that outside scholarship in your financial aid package, we may be replacing your student contribution. We may be reducing your federal your work study award to accommodate outside a scholarship. and only after we have reduced your student contribution and your work study, we may have to reduce your Penn grant funding, depending on how large your outside scholarship is. So we wanted to give you a high-level overview of the Penn's financial aid program for our international students. We have about 30 minutes, so we're going to use now to answer some of the questions that you have put in the chat. And we also have had members of our team answering questions in the chat as well. So Barbara is going to facilitate the Q&A session.
Great. Thank you, Eric and John, so much for your presentation. That was really helpful. And I know that you actually have already answered some of the questions that students have typed along the way. But one question we received is about eligibility for financial aid for international students. How does an international student know if they might be eligible, and how should they decide whether they should apply or not for financial aid?
Oh, great question. So what I would always recommend students to do first is visit our website. Get familiar with all the information that we have there. Especially we have a section for international students and everything that they should know as they apply for the financial aid program. You won't get the actual financial aid package until after you are admitted, after you submit all the different forms that John indicated, such as the CSS profile and also the earning statements. And I know the earning statements vary from country to country. Some countries you file a tax return, just like here in the United States. In other countries, you're not required, but you might have some form of earning statement that provides us a better understanding what are the family's financial resources that could help us determine your financial need. So once we get all that information from the students, everything that's listed on the checklist, we do a very extensive what we call needs analysis, where we take into consideration not only the income that's coming in, but also the region of the world where the family lives, the number of people in the household, the number of people that are attending college, any other siblings that might be going into college as well. All of those things impact the student's financial need, and it allows us to offer the best financial aid package, because we're not only looking at what's coming in terms of income, but also what are some of the expenses the family has as a whole. So that allows us to do what we call a very extensive needs analysis. But we also understand that things change from year to year. We actually, when you're filling out the financial aid application, let's say for the 25-26 academic year, we're asking you to provide income information for the year 2023. So that's just how financial aid works. So we call it prior. So we're asking for information, your income information from 2 years before you're actually applying. So what we tells families and students, we recognize things could change between that period. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. It could be a loss of a family member. It could be a loss of employment, a loss of income of any source. There's a lot of unrest happening in the world. We want to know if something changed from the base year to the current financial situation. We also have what we call a reevaluation process. The initial financial aid application, you have to submit all the information for the base year, but then we have a process to appeal where you allow us to, or you provide us with additional information that the applications did not initially collect, where we can continue to look at how we can potentially help you even more based on your current circumstances.
Thank you, Eric. That was a really helpful answer. We also have some questions about documents. So if students need to submit additional documents to explain their situation, how and where should they upload those documents for you?
I will answer that by saying the CSS profile, there is a comment section where you can write any circumstances that you think we should be aware of. So I want you, when you're filling out your CSS profile, be as detailed as possible on your on your family's financial circumstances. There are things that not all circumstances will be taken into consideration as we build your financial aid package. The more we know about you, the family, your own circumstances, the circumstances of the country that you reside in, the better we have, the better picture we have of what your own unique circumstance, and that way we can take that information in there. But let's say you already submitted a CSS profile and you were not as specific, or something changed after you submitted the CSS profile. We have a process called reevaluation, where you can simply sometimes just submit a letter explaining what your circumstances are, upload that letter and any supporting documentation to our secure portal on our website, and that way we can take that into consideration as well. You will hear from our office and what additional support we might be able to provide given the circumstances. And that's a process that we could do anytime during the academic year, because we understand that things can change from year to year. And as John explained earlier on, the financial aid process is an annual process. So every year, as you fill out the financial aid applications, if there are new circumstances or new situations that we should know about, you will have the opportunity to let us know.
Great, thank you. I also see some questions about financial aid application deadlines. So what are the financial aid application deadlines for early decision and regular decision? And then when can students expect to hear back with you about their package?
I can take that one, Barbara. Good question. As I mentioned before, you want to be very, very conscious of the deadlines for financial aid, along with admission, of course, because the goal is that if you complete the application and we have all your documentation, our team has then the time to do the review and provide you with your financial aid award at the same time you get your acceptance letter. That'll make your decision-making process hopefully easier, so you don't have to worry about understanding what the cost is going to be maybe later on. So that being said, if you're applying for early decision, the deadline for the financial aid application is November the 6th, next month, very soon, coming up very soon. If you're applying regular decision, the application deadline is February 1st of 2025. Again, you can expect to receive those award letters at the same time as your acceptance letter. I know those are concerns about, what if I don't have all the documentation? What if, there's something that we need to follow up with you about regarding your application? I just want to highlight again that our process doesn't mean you're going to lose out on aid eligibility just because we might be missing a document, or we need to follow up with you for further clarification. We will still give you the same exact consideration for aid. You will still work through our same methodology to determine your need, whether you're on time or not.
Thank you, John. I also see that we've received some questions about the amount of aid that students can receive. So what is the maximum percentage of financial aid that an international student could potentially receive? And are there any international students at Penn who have an expected family contribution of $0?
I could start that, John, and so I'll say yes. We do have a large number of our students that have zero parental contribution. Most of our highly aided students, those who have income of $75,000 or below, and a parental contribution of $4,500 or below. Most of them would have should expect a family contribution of between 0 and 2,000. The majority of them being in that range, but we have multiple students that have 0 expected family contribution, and that will cover all the expenses that John shared on the cost of attendance. Now, not only the billable expenses, but also the unbillable expenses that you might have, personal expenses. Travel is included as part of the financial aid package later on, health insurance as well. So yeah, we are very proud that our highly aided program continues to grow to an extent that about a quarter of our students on financial aid are considered highly aided, and from year to year, we're looking for ways to continue to support our lower income students from not just domestic, but also international students.
This might be a good time, Eric, just to mention a couple of nuanced pieces about highly aided determination, because some students or families can look and say, oh, I make $75,000 a year, I'm going to be highly aided. The determination for highly aided status comes from our office after the review for financial aid determination. And we look at not just your total income, but the assets as well. And typical assets is what we're determining is what would provide for the highly aided criteria. So if you make $75,000 or less per year and you have typical assets. Atypical or non-typical assets would be things like if you own a property, a real estate property beyond your primary home, if you own a business or in a partnership with the business. Those could be types of things that would disqualify you from that highly aided status. But rest assured, if your income is in the range of 75,000 and your assets are not super extraneous, it may be that you're not highly aided, but you're going to receive a significant amount of grant funding, as Eric mentioned, to cover those expenses. So look for that status on your financial aid award. If you don't have it, you're welcome to call in and question, or again, provide more information about your changing circumstances if that's the case. I should also mention too that for highly aided students or even students who are close to being highly aided, oftentimes what this means is that you're going to be getting money back. You're actually going to get money in a bank account that you determine to help pay for those indirect expenses. And that could mean that you're getting thousands of dollars at once. We want to caution that students who are receiving this money are going to be using this for its intended purpose. Oftentimes students will pay for books and supplies and other miscellaneous expenses related to their education. So we want to be very cautious to let you know that that's what the money is intended for, and that students need to begin to budget this. As I mentioned, those who do receive a grant assistance that's over the cost of attendance are going to be taxed on that. That might be something you need to consider when looking at your refund and thinking, okay, I'm going to use part of it for this, but I might need to save this other part for that tax piece. I just wanted to offer those things up.
Thank you both. And our highly aided students receive some wonderful benefits, even above and beyond what they'll see in their financial aid package. I wonder if maybe you could explain what some of those benefits are.
Sure, I can take that one if you want. One of the biggest pieces, as I mentioned before, is that for all first-year students who are determined highly aided, they will receive a free laptop. That is a guarantee. That is something that we will arrange with our bookstore, and you will have a free laptop to use for your time at Penn, which is great. There's also the summer internship and research funding, up to $5,000 over the summer in your upper class years, junior and senior, for an experience in an internship that's either underpaid or not paid at all. And the funding is there to kind of assist you in not being paid for housing, meals, and things like that. So that's really also a great program. If you need to take on the Penn health insurance plan, which again is not going to be part of the cost of attendance initially, but if you do need to use that health insurance because you don't have coverage under your parents, Penn will provide an additional grant above what we provide in your financial aid award to cover that health insurance cost for you. There is also a free round trip for international students for one time of the year. They're able to use a round trip to go back and forth between home and the U.S. and Philadelphia. So you will work with our office to help you through that process. We essentially are able to take the information you get about a flight and help you work through that process. So those are just some of the examples. Oh, and graduation regalia. So several years from now, when we're looking to graduate, we're also going to be able to provide you with assistance to cover your cap and gown and things like that for when you do graduate from Penn.
Thanks for sharing all of that, John. And for those who are interested to learn more, there is a highly aided page on the Student Registration Financial Services website. If you want to put that into your search, you should be able to come up with that page to learn more about all of the benefits available. The admissions office also partners with Student Financial Aid to support our incoming international highly aided students. So we have a dedicated email inbox for those students to support you. We will pay your CVIS fee, and we'll also book your initial trip to campus in addition to those 4 round trips, 1 per year that John mentioned. So you don't have to be out of pocket for that first plane trip to get to campus. So we're going to make sure that we support you with all of those expenses. Now, we've also received some questions related to early decision and regular decision. Is there a difference in the financial aid package that a student would receive, whether they apply an early decision or regular decision?
Simple answer is no, no difference. You're encouraged to apply to the program that works best for you and your family. The financially determination, it is the same whether you're applying through the early decision, regular decision, even as a transfer student. It's our methodology. It's consistent for each population of students.
Great. Thank you, Eric. I also see that we've received some questions related to CSS profile fee waivers, and I can probably answer this question because my office handles that. So if anybody is interested in a CSS profile fee waiver, you can email our office at info@admissions.upenn.edu. Akoswa, maybe you could just put that email address in the chat box for everybody. I will also share that on one of the final slides at the end of our presentation. Or you can just go to the contact page on the Penn Admissions website. There's a form you can fill out, send us an email, say that you would like to request a CSS profile fee waiver, and we will form to fill out. And then once you apply to Penn, we can apply that CSS for you. And let's see what else. Some of the students here may have parents who don't file taxes or pay taxes. So what exactly should they submit in lieu of their tax documents?
Sorry, I mentioned that earlier in the presentation. We understand that things work differently in every country. I'm also from outside the U. I was born outside the U.S. and I understand that taxes where I'm from are not required for everybody, and that's different. That might be here in the States might be different from country to country. We just need, I mean, if you don't file a tax return, if there are any type of earning statements that you receive from your employer, if there's an accountant that can provide a letter or any type of information about what the family's financial circumstances look like, we just want to be able to know that. While the CSS profile will ask you to self-report that information, we do need the documentation to back that up, just like we do for our domestic students who submit their tax returns. So we just want to have some kind of legal document that just gives us a better picture of the family's financial circumstances. If it's not an official government document like a tax return, it could be a letter from an accountant explaining what the circumstances look like, or a letter from your employer explaining what the circumstances are. We do ask you to please have those translated into English if English is not the language that's spoken in your country, and also the currency to be translated to be changed into dollars. Just makes things a better communication consistency between our offices and the documentation you submit, because we don't want to try to figure out what your actual resources are. It's better to get the correct information directly from you. So if you can have the documentation translated into English and have the currency to be listed in US dollars, but also providing the initial official document, we will really appreciate it. It will speed up the financial aid process because we're not trying to figure things out and following up with questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. Now, we all know that some of our students might be interested in taking a gap year, basically taking a year off after they're admitted to Penn and deferring their enrollment. So if a student decides to take a gap year, how does that impact their financial aid, and would they need to reapply a year later?
Yes, students will have to reapply every year, just like whether you're with us 4 years or you apply, you take a break, you come back, you still have to reapply for the financial aid. Even if students that are admitted are with us and take a leave of absence and come back, they all have to reapply every single year. So if you receive a financial aid package and then you decide as a first-year student, you decide that you're going to take a gap year, when you come back, we will ask you to provide all the information once again so we can determine your eligibility. If your family's income information has not changed from year to year, our financial aid packages are consistent. So if your family's income stayed the same from the first year that you apply when you're coming back from your gap year, your financial aid eligibility should still be the same, because our financial aid packages are consistent from year to year. Don't worry that your eligibility is going to be less because you took a gap. That's not how it works. You will still be considered to all the full financial aid eligibility that you have eligibility for.
Great, thank you. I also see that we have some US citizens and dual citizens who've joined us today, some of whom are living abroad, and they have some questions about how that impacts their financial aid. So if a student holds US citizenship, either as their primary citizenship or as dual citizen, how does that impact their financial aid? Do we apply the need blind or the need aware policy? And do they need to fill out the FAFSA?
So if they are a dual citizen, or if they're a U.S. citizen living abroad, essentially they would have access to complete the FAFSA for federal purposes. Ideally, then we would be treating them as a domestic student for financial aid purposes. So they would go through the process of submitting the information that we request on that checklist. So they would want to go through that process, and they'll get a financial aid award in the same exact manner, with the same eligibility requirements, same consideration, and all of that. It doesn't change anything, except that we do need to ask them to complete a FAFSA.
Thank you. I also see a few questions related to the financial aid application deadline in comparison to the application for admission deadline. And I think I can answer this one. So for early decision, our application for admission, that would be either your common application or coalition application, is due on November 1st. Which is coming right up. And then, John, I believe you said that the financial aid application is due on November 6th for early decision.
Correct.
Excellent. So you have a little bit of extra time to finish the financial aid application after you submit your application for admission to our Office of Admission. So if you are running out of time, you can focus right now on your essays, your activity section, getting all of those pieces together, your recommendations. And then after you submit that on November 1st, you'll have a little bit more time to gather together your financial aid documents and to finish the CSS profile. Okay, so many questions coming in. This is great. We've received a few questions also about students who come from single parent families, and they'd like to know a little bit more about the non-custodial parent form.
I can take that one, Barbara. So part of our philosophy is that when you're applying for financial aid, we're going to consider biological parents at the outset, that they are both going to be able to contribute to their ability towards child education. That is our philosophy behind our practice. So essentially what that means for those whose parents may not be together or separated is that we ask that both parents complete a CSS profile, both for the household A and the household B, or the custodial or the non-custodial. And in that sense, then we're determining the individual parent's ability to pay our cost of attendance for their child. And we will put those together in the final expected family contribution so that neither parent sees any of the other's information whatsoever. It will not be shared with the student, it will not be shared with the family. So we make that determination, and then it's the parent's decision to kind of work through with their student to make that contribution. But we ask for both the CSS profile from both parents, we ask for tax or earning statements from each of those parents, and we ask them that we provide that information every year. And once we've made the determination for a non-custodial parent, we will be able to move forward without getting that information in future years. But we do ask that it be part of the process. So that hopefully answers the question. There are times, of course, when one parent may not be in the picture for whatever reason. We would want to know more about that. We do have a non-custodial parent waiver request form that our committee reviews for students who submit it. It's not always a guarantee. We do sometimes understand that families may have different dynamics or challenges with communication, but we do hope that both parents are able to come together to do the process together, and that we will make that determination. So we do have a request form to have that non-custodial parent removed from the process, but it's not always a guarantee. It's going to depend upon the circumstance.
Great, thank you. And I see some students asking if low-income international students really have a chance of getting admitted to Penn with financial aid. And I just want to emphasize what John and Eric have said already. All three of us do a lot of work to support international students on financial aid at Penn. There are a lot of them here. Penn has one of the largest international financial aid budgets for need-based aid of any university in the United States. We have a lot of aid available. We want to spend that money on you. We want to bring you to campus. We have a very global student population with well over 100 countries represented just among the undergraduates. Many of those students do receive financial aid. And as Eric mentioned earlier, some of those students are paying $0. That means that their tuition is covered, their fees that we've talked about, housing, dining, and all of those special extras like the laptop and the flights. So the answer is yes. We really do have money to spend and we want to give it away and bring amazing international students to campus. That's really part of our mission here at Penn. So if you think that you might need some financial assistance in attending Penn, we really encourage you to go ahead and apply for financial aid, even if you think that you need a smaller amount and you don't need the full tuition covered. We don't want you to have any sort of financial strain for your family during the 4 years. So make sure that you apply for it up front if you think that some of that aid could be helpful. If you really think that you don't need it, as John said, you don't need to submit an application. But if you think that it could help, the worst that could happen is that we let you know that you don't qualify financially for our aid, but at least you would have an answer to that question. I know that we are running a little bit short on time. John or Eric, is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to touch on before we wrap up?
I think we've covered all the topics that we prepare for this event, but I do want to continue to stress what Barbara just said. If you need financial aid now, you should be applying for financial aid from the very beginning. Why? Because if you may need aid later on, we might not be able to provide any funding in future years. We just need to know that from the beginning. We have a robust financial aid program for our international students, as Barbara mentioned. So we just need to know that because our policy is very strict on which might not be able to provide you funding later on because you applied to the university without the need of financial aid. So I just wanted to stress that because that's very important. The last thing that we want is that your family is struggling financially to pay for your Penn education because you decided not to apply for financial aid your first year. So that's a very important takeaway from this conversation is that we want to know. And we want to know from the beginning. So please, when you're applying to Penn, also apply for financial aid so we can let you know what your eligibility is. If you know and you believe that you might need it at some point, it might not be the first year, but it might be in subsequent years.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much. I know that some of you have questions that perhaps have not been answered yet. We tried to get to as many as we possibly could. But if you still have questions, I'm going to share some information so that you can contact us. So here on the screen, you can see a few ways that you can contact and stay engaged with the undergraduate admissions office at Penn. You can see our website there at the top. And then you also see a link that you can use to sign up for other virtual programs like this one, or to take our virtual campus tour, or to sign up for a live student chat. So we welcome you to sign up for any of those events and to engage with us in other ways. You can also see our Penn Admissions YouTube channel. As I mentioned earlier, this event has been recorded, so we'll post the video later on if you want to return and revisit some of these questions, or if you'd like to share it with somebody who couldn't attend today. We also have recordings of other events on that channel, and we have a playlist that's specifically for international students. So you can feel free to check out some of those events. We did an international student panel 2 weeks ago with 4 students from around the world talking about their experience as international students on campus. You can feel free to check that out. You can also see that we are pretty active on social media, so you can follow Previewing Penn on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. And as I mentioned, you can send follow-up questions either to the admissions office or to the financial aid office. So if you want to reach the admissions office, you can write to info@admissions.upenn.edu. If you'd like to request a CSS profile fee waiver, that's the email address that you should contact. And then I also have a link here to the contact form on the SRFS website. Student financial aid is part of the larger Student Registration Financial Services office at Penn, and you can find all the contact information there. If you need to send an email or a fax or make a phone call, you can reach out by any of those means. And that will just about bring us to the end of the hour. So I want to say thank you once again to everyone in the audience for joining us. We really appreciate you taking this time to learn more about financial aid for international students at Penn. We look forward to answering more of your questions if you reach out to us in the future. And we also look forward to reading your applications. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day or evening. Take care.